Well, Troy has questions.
I saw a chemtrail, dozens of them, vapors everywhere. Well, they're spraying something. And there's probably more airplanes flying over New Jersey than Arkansas. Nobody knows who's doing this, who's responsible for this. Well, I had asked people in Arkansas, I'm like, do you know about what's going on here? And they were like, no, we don't know. A lot of people say that they're putting aluminum in the air, poisoning us through drinking water. I find this interesting. I'm not a scientist, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Yes, you are.
It's a Quanspiracy.
Interesting.
Interesting. Well, Troy has questions.
What the miracle is.
I spent time last night, by the way, Troy. I watched some of that documentary.
So did I.
Did you? The Unacknowledged. Who's the guy with something green?
Dr. Stephen Greer.
Greer. I only watched about 40 minutes of it. I'll finish it
related
today.
to David Allen?
No,
Oh.
although they do look alike.
Yes.
And it was really interesting because, you know, I'm like, usually these UFO things, all they do is they interview a bunch of crackpots.
Mm-hmm.
But this guy had the right people on. He interviewed airline pilots,
Military personnel.
military personnel, a couple of astronauts. One thing he did I didn't like, though. One thing, and they all do this a little bit, is they show moments of clips that you're supposed to go like, whoa, what does that mean? Like Buzz Aldrin out of context talking about something. And it's like, I don't believe Buzz Aldrin was saying that we've been visited by aliens.
They had a clip. So, what's the movie called?
Unacknowledged.
Unacknowledged, right.
An expose of the world's greatest secret.
He had to get in the subtitle.
Yeah, it's
Troy is
important.
so excited
Yeah, he
about
is.
it. I found a version for free on YouTube. I found a bootleg version.
I bought it because the option to rent it, I guess when it's brand new, there was no option to rent it. So I had to buy it. I spent $20 on it, but so far it's worth it.
I was about to buy it on iTunes because I don't rent on iTunes. But I was about to buy it on iTunes. But when I saw $19.99, I was like, get the fuck out of here. So I found a free bootleg upload on YouTube.
That's probably what I should have done. I looked on Vimeo and it was taken down. And I'm like, I'll just buy it and watch it on my television.
Yeah. So I was watching. I mean, I watched it on my television, but just through the YouTube app. But yeah, when Buzz Aldrin, they showed him like on the news. It's a documentary about the existence of aliens, and I didn't watch till
And
the
the
end.
cover-up.
Yeah, and the cover up, and I think it gets into why the cover up and how they're benefiting, which I'll probably watch today. But they do show, they talk to, the interviews that they have are really good. Like the people that they actually have sitting down as part of this guy's disclosure project. I think that's what it's called.
Most of them are very good. A couple of them I'm like, you didn't need that guy. I didn't need to see Hillary on Jimmy Kimmel doing a stupid joke about fucking Bill Clinton seeing you know.
The interviews that they got for the movie are good. The clips that they called are where you start
A little
running into
unnecessary,
stuff.
yeah. Most of the interviews are really good, what I saw, though.
Like Buzz Aldrin, they go like, well, there's some kind of structure on one of the moons of Mars, and it leads in a way that makes you think like, oh, that must be because a little Martian came and built a house on their moon. But it's exactly what you said. It's Buzz Aldrin going like, we should go to one of the moons of Mars, and people will see a structure there, and they'll wonder, how did that get there? Boom, next thing.
Yeah, because he's doing that. He did that book about Trip to Mars. Remember when Buzz snapped at me?
Oh, yeah.
Fucking cranky asshole.
really
I asked
is.
him to sign the cover of the book so I could display. He goes, nah, you sign the inside. Oh, sorry, Buzz. All right. It's one of your shitty book. But I think he's obsessed with Mars, so that's probably what he was talking about with some future trip. And you're right, they did edit and make it look like he's like, there's a structure on Mars. And it was like, they don't need to do that because I think this documentary is really good.
That's why he was such a good astronaut, because he's got severe OCD. Like everything, because when you're an astronaut, everything has to be a certain way. You put your suit on at this time, and the helmet goes on at this time, and the snaps and the buttons, and everything has to be done in order. So now he comes back to Earth, and 50 years later, or however long it's been, you're like, can you sign the front? And he goes, no, no, no. You open the book, go to the second page, sign that page.
And I also think he had this general disdain for me and my lack of manliness.
You think so?
Yeah, he's a military guy. He's been to the moon. Here I am, just some fucking out-of-shape fruit. Could you sign this? He's like, fuck you. I don't blame him. So what did you think? I mean, obviously you love this guy.
Yeah, I think he is the aliens guy.
Troy loves him. He admitted it.
He's the guy that makes sense. I mean, he's the guy that breaks it down, and he's done a lot of research, and does his homework. And I love how he was explaining that these scientists say that there's no evidence at all of aliens,
right?
And there is an overwhelming amount of evidence.
An embarrassment of riches, it was called.
That was the first. They probably should have changed the beginning to embarrassment of riches. I didn't know if they'd have an embarrassment of riches as evidence.
It's an embarrassment of riches.
Yeah, and all that stuff of Bill Clinton. They show Obama on Kimmel, and it all makes sense as you go along.
Right.
You understand why they did that. And the Buzz Aldrin thing. I mean, it's just him talking about something supernatural on national television. I mean, that's why that clip was there.
Well, they didn't say supernatural. They just said there's a structure on Mars.
Yeah,
wherever that came from.
They made it look like a knowledgeable guy like Buzz Aldrin was saying that there was a structure already there.
Giving credence to.
Yeah, a little bit of selective editing, but that aside, which again, all documentaries do that. I thought it was still well done from what I saw. And the interview, Neil deGrasse Tyson, for anyone that heard it, was in last week, and him and Troy always go back and forth because Neil Tyson doesn't believe.
I don't know, back and forth. Troy presents an idea, and then Neil deGrasse Tyson squashes him into the ground.
In an ugly fashion and says, get an alien and drag him into the town square.
They go back and forth like a hat goes back and forth with a steamroller.
But I don't agree with Neil about it doesn't matter the source. When you have airline pilots saying that they've seen certain things, I do give a certain amount of credibility to that. Astronauts, because they understand aerodynamics and the way jet propulsion works and the way things are supposed to move and what we have. And I tried saying this but that didn't sway Neil deGrasse Tyson. Now he didn't give a fuck.
I don't know if you guys got into it in the documentary, but they talk about how, scientists are ridiculed. If you come out and say anything that is regarded to this, you are blacklisted and completely ridiculed.
Yeah, you really are seen as a fool if you come out and say you're looking for spacemen.
Yeah.
Plus, Troy liked it because, there were some shots in there at scientists. They were like, look, there's more evidence of aliens than there are of black holes. And Neil deGrasse Tyson was in here talking about black holes. Hey, show me a black hole. Bring a black hole into the town square. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he didn't say that. But they have actually gotten photographic evidence.
Of black holes?
Kind of what the results of.
Well, they had a little alien body in this movie. You see that?
I haven't gotten to that yet, but it annoyed me. Like, they had like a teeny little alien body, and it looks like a doll. And I'm like, there's no way that's a real alien body.
No, they
I will get to it.
On his other documentary, they went in and they examined it, and they took it to different people to do DNA tests on it. Like, this is nothing of this world.
Well, let me ask you.
It looks like a voodoo doll.
Who gave them the thing to go around with? Like, if they have an alien body, who gave it to a documentary maker and said, bring it wherever you like?
They found it somewhere. I can't remember exactly where, but they did find the body, and they took it to multiple people to do DNA testing, and they all had come to the conclusion that it was nothing of this world.
Well, all right, but I don't know.
I haven't seen it all yet.
I haven't gotten to that part yet.
The body, though, did. It just showed like a clip of it in the beginning. Like, there have been bodies found.
Looked like the Great Kazoo. It just didn't look believable or real. But again, I'll get to that. I will watch the end of it. What I saw of it, I liked.
But and there were like, you know how when you have to do like a scientific debate, it's all in the details. The minute there's anything that sort of doesn't match up, that's when the scientists start to steamroll you. Like Neil deGrasse Tyson, he jumped onto his point of, well, firsthand accounts and just a person saying something, it doesn't count as evidence. And so when he established that from the beginning, whenever Troy said, well, this person said, and Neil, aha, another firsthand account, well, that doesn't mean anything. So there was like one part when they were doing the interviews.
By the way, did you see, Travis never comes in here, but he just came in and wanted to just get a little camera time.
He did. He did. Jim, there appears to be a technical issue. Allow me, the producer, to come in. Yes. The show needs some producing.
Yeah, he fixed the phone and they did like a little side glance to the camera, like, look at this, making the show run.
And he also said, he told us before the show, he said, as long as the camera guys are in here, please don't refer to me as the Travis dog.
Yeah, please don't, guys. It's humiliating. I have family.
This could be my big break.
Yeah, they're going to see that.
But there was one, when they were talking about the Roswell crash, and they said, we had bodies. We found aliens. Here's what they look like. They were talking about examining the aliens that were in the Roswell spaceship. But, like, the two interviews were just slightly off. Like, the guy was like, one guy goes, he had no ears. And the other guy goes, he only had ear canals. And I'm like, whoa.
Well, keep in mind, they're talking about something that happened 60 years, 70 years ago. So it's like, if you do something that was like even a year old, sometimes the accounts are going to be off.
Sure, but not if it was a space person. Like, if it was an alien, I remember.
Their testimonies were pretty close.
Would you remember the details if it was an alien?
Yeah, I think so. But I also heard that those were just dummies that they made and put up there for these tests. That's why they found bodies. But again, I'll get to the rest of the documentary. I just watched it. I thought of you. I'll watch the end of it.
Yeah.
I expected to hate it, but he seemed like it was. He seemed like he's a pretty sincere guy. So
yeah, and I mean it's it's legit in the sense that if they are all crackpots, they're the most highly educated crackpots there are.
Yeah, there's a lot of them that have military or had high clearance.
And they do talk to people who are the people who were at Roswell. Like something happened at Roswell. That's not for debate.
Right.
An incident happened. The debate is whether the government story or this story or whatever.
The government's original story was that they were UFOs.
Right.
And then they changed it to say weather balloons.
Right.
And then they changed it to say it was actually they were working on a way to get fucking nuclear weapons to drop on the Soviet Union, but with balloons. And these were like very, very top secret balloons, and they also had these guys in the these like fake little
so it could have
mannequins.
It could have been that they said UFO because they didn't want the Soviets to find out they were trying to drop atomic bombs on them with balloons.
Or figure out how to do it without being detected. But yeah, they were trying to get them.
So it's possible.
Yeah.
Certainly feasible. But they were talking to people who claim that they were literally the ones who examined these bodies.
Right.
Like not,
They would know the
I've read
difference.
this, I knew this guy. They were getting firsthand accounts.
Now somebody is saying this. This guy is saying, "Sir, you have a comment, but it's not necessarily true." Go ahead, Ben.
Morning, fellas. How are you today?
I have to shit. How are you?
Sorry. You know the old story about how as soon as somebody becomes president, the black suits take him into the back room. They tell them all the secrets.
Right.
That's what they said about, they said that a lot about Obama, that he was all like, change. And then they brought him to the back room and he was like, okay, it's not going to work out.
Yeah.
Suddenly he became quiet. But don't you think if they bring you into the back and they tell you about the aliens and they tell you about the UFOs and where the bodies are buried and all of this stuff, as insane as Trump is, as loose as he is on his Twitter account, don't you think we'd get a daily posting?
I don't think they would tell him.
They
sir.
didn't tell him.
I don't think they would. They don't always tell the president. He's seen as like a guy who's kind of in transition. He's going to be there for 4 years or 8 years. He's not staying. But no, I don't think they would. And even if they did tell the president, I doubt they would have went and told Trump, hoping he'd keep it under his hat.
I bet they've told presidents before. They tell lifetime politicians because they're part of the system. But they didn't tell Donald. I mean,
Yeah.
they're up there. There's an army of people around Donald that are there to lie to him every day about what's going on.
Yeah, they're saying George Bush Sr., that Jimmy Carter asked for certain information, and George Bush Sr. still have to get
Bill
a call from
Clinton
Congress.
couldn't get it.
Yeah.
Supposedly, there's levels of government that our president doesn't have control of. That's what this documentary says.
Illuminati?
I mean, you can. I don't know. You'd have to call it. I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
Thanks for the call.
There's parts of it that they just don't have access to, and they don't want to give that information away unless you support their agenda. They don't want anybody to know.
Did they tell the president what that eye is on the pyramid on money? I don't think so.
They probably don't know anymore at this point.
They forgot.
Yeah, it's probably been watered down.
Yeah.
You didn't get to the Marilyn Monroe thing.
I don't
I
think
didn't
so.
know, but did she see one? Because she was a very, very credible source. Well, she saw one, and it looked like a little barbiturate and flew into her mouth.
According to the documentary,
Yes, of course.
she was involved with both Kennedy brothers.
Yeah.
Sure.
And supposedly her phones were tapped, and she had talked about that the Kennedys were kind of closing her off and didn't want anything to do with her anymore. She had this information. They were supposed to show her something from outer space, and she was going to come forward in a tell-all press conference, and
They were going to show, like, you have to, but if they do keep the secret, let's say play devil's advocate and say it's true. Bobby and Jack Kennedy are both fucking this woman. They're going to just go.
Which I believe that part.
Yeah, I think
100%.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was at the same time.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
While DiMaggio was napping on the sofa. But they all of a sudden they're going to tell this volatile kook that there's space aliens. That
Well,
doesn't make sense. That they would tell. And then she's going to hold a press conference.
Jim, you know the power, pussy.
Pillow
Yeah, I
talk
know
gets
that.
weird.
But it's not that strong.
Well, you don't. I mean, you don't know. They could have ran their mouth about some stupid shit, and
Maybe the little brother told her. Maybe she was fucking JFK, and then she started fucking Bobby, and Bobby knew, like, but she's, my brother's the president, and he was like, did Jack tell you about the aliens?
That's it. You know what? That's exact. Because she looked at him like she was in bed with him, and she wasn't that turned on. She said, "What does the Attorney General do?" And he's like, "Hey, I'll tell you about the aliens. Anything to keep her there."
Did Jack tell you about the aliens? Really? And then she went to JFK, and she was like, you know what Bobby told me? And he was like, oh. Well, yeah, let me tell you what's really going on, because she couldn't let her get the scoop from Bobby.
Maybe they were one-upping each other. Yeah.
Right. So then she's got all this information, and then they get together. Before they get killed for knowing too much, they get together, and they're like, oh, fuck, we both told her everything about the aliens. Well, let's just off the bitch.
Yeah, the idea about the conspiracy and the idea of like the presidents being scared for their lives, like that stuff I wish that they didn't touch on, because that's the stuff that makes me skeptical. But I believe people who read radars. I believe, like, again, military pilots or people like that who aren't likely to lie because it's a risk to their reputation.
Astronauts.
Maybe
of course, yeah.
Maybe they killed JFK, and then after JFK, they were like, let's just stop telling the president shit so we don't have to do this again.
Yeah, maybe that might be what it was.
Because it's like, if we have to do this every single time, it's going to really get complicated. So let's kill JFK and then not tell the president what's going on anymore.
Yeah, but Trump, they probably wouldn't tell.
No, they definitely would not.
Even if it was policy to tell the president, Trump would definitely not.
No, he would not. He would not know.
He'd blather that out. Craig in Long Island, yes.
I feel like everybody's kind of discrediting like what's going on in other countries with this stuff, though. I mean, are we that lucky that the aliens, if the aliens did land, they just happen to be here in the United States? Like,
Well, that's also something I do have that makes me wonder about conspiracy and doubt it a little bit. Is if all these countries, and thank you for the call, mister, if all these countries are getting aliens, how is there not one person out there who's the leader of another country going, look, we got one? Like, how is it everyone agrees to the conspiracy? They're not all our shitty military.
They did quote Gorbachev on the documentary
Reagan.
saying...
I mean, there's a lot of presidents that have talked about it. I mean, well, that goes... A lot of the classified information from other countries has been unclassified, and you can actually read it for yourself.
All right. Well, I just wanted you to know I saw some of it, and it was good. And it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. So I'm going to watch the end of it. And I'd like to interview that guy. He's really interesting.
Yeah, let's have him on the show.
If he'd come on.
Yeah, I'm sure he would.
I felt like such an expert last night, because... that's how I ended the night, watching the UFO documentary bootleg on YouTube.
Me too.
And before that, I was just on a loop. I mean, I spent probably 2.5 hours on YouTube. First, watching all videos about abandoned malls, and then quickly going into videos about abandoned Disney theme parks and ideas.
There's a photographer who takes pictures of abandoned malls.
Yeah.
And he just goes around, and they make it look like these things have just rotted out. But, there's no maintenance on them, and people probably go in and vandalize them.
They definitely do.
You don't just rot out in 30 years.
No, people go in, they sneak in, like they were telling. I was watching a story about one mall where people were going in and, like, they stole all the copper wiring, they stole the railings, like, they stole everything. But they were saying that there were all these deaths after, because the mall was so poorly taken care of, that people were going in and trying to steal, like, wiring and getting electrocuted to death.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of... I see videos like that on this one website. So it's these guys, like, they're either that or they're on top of the train, and they're trying to pull something off, and it's just someone with a cell phone screaming while a man smokes on the top of a zap. Yeah, it's always enjoyable. Stupid, you can't cut through wires.
But, yeah, you have to turn them off first, unplug them, then cut. But, yeah, and they showed, like, there was, like... The skylights had all been shot out. There was bullet holes everywhere because there was gangs around the area where the mall was. And it was really cool, that one, because once the skylight, like the glass roof, started to break, you could see, like in the winter, all the old escalators and stuff had snow all over them, because now the weather's actually getting through the ceiling.
I wonder why they don't just knock them down and use that property for something else.
I don't know. I think I think a lot of times the cities are broke and they just don't want to pay the cost of demolition. Like there was one of the other malls, they had demolished half of it, and then they just stopped. And so you had a half demolished mall that was just sitting there.
We watched very different things late at night.
Do you?
Yeah.
You weren't watching about like all the ideas that, like, I know about Disney America, which turned into American Celebration. I know about Treasure Island. It's still there, but it's just overgrown. I would never go on that thing. It's probably infested with alligators. I know all kinds of Disney stuff.
Yeah,
now.
no, I'm not.
You were watching about abandoned Disney parks and ideas?
No, I wasn't.
Were you?
We can talk for hours now, Sam.
I know all the facts.
You know River Country?
Oh, yeah. I'm very well versed. And
the ski resort?
Don't even start to talk to me about Westcott.
Oh, Westcott would have been amazing.
It was the Epcot of the West. They were going to build an Epcot.
So why didn't it go through? I can't believe I'm interested. Why do I give a shit? But I do. What happened to Westcott?
I don't remember why that. I think it was too expensive or something. I think it was too. That one was too expensive. They were going to build a Disney park in Virginia called Disney America, and it was going to be like an hour and a half away from D.C.
Right.
And it was going to be all about like American history and blah blah. And the local residents were just like, no, you can't build that here. We don't want Disney here. And they just couldn't get it done.
And plus, people who know about Washington would say they already got Disney there, right?
That's great.
That's
really something. That's really something.
What did who's this fucking? And then I wound up watching the end of the documentary with Dr. Was it Greer?
Yep.
I haven't seen the whole thing yet, but I had to buy the motherfucker on iTunes because the bootleg that I was watching on YouTube. Sometimes, yeah, you don't.
And you can't rent it on iTunes yet. It's too new.
I don't rent on iTunes.
I know, but I do. I always rent, and I bought this one because it wasn't an option. I liked it.
It's such a bummer when you pause something on YouTube without realizing it's bootleg, so it's not going to be there when you go back to it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like I went back to it yesterday afternoon, and it was like, no, this video's been pulled. It was illegal.
Of course.
You go, oh shit.
There was a couple guys in that I had an issue with. The guy with the red sweater and the mustache, I didn't believe him. But it's like any documentary like that. Like I think that the guy who runs it, Greer, is sincere. I'm not 100% convinced.
Was he the
but
guy?
I think he did a very sincere job, and I liked him.
Was he the guy? So they would do like the interviews with all the experts.
Right.
This is the documentary we were talking about yesterday.
Yeah.
It's called Unacknowledged, and it's explaining how and why the existence of aliens has been covered up by the United States government and I guess worldwide. Is he the guy who they go and they talk, because the strength of the documentary is they talk to experts and people who are actually there and have first-hand information on stuff. And then there's one guy that they keep going back to, and he kind of tells the same story that the people who were there are telling.
The guy with the mustache.
Yeah, but he gets some of the details wrong. And you're like, what? You're discrediting him by not having the details exactly right.
And the guy said at one point they were talking about Hollywood directors and stuff like that, and a lot of them are in on it. It was a little too conspiratorial. Not him, not Stephen Greer, but one of the guys he interviewed. And the guy goes, and Stephen Greer asked him, "Well, how do you pay these guys?" And he went, "Cash." And I'm like, shut up.
Yeah.
You don't pay. You're not paying big directors cash.
Just made that up just now.
You made that up.
I think that was back in the day. I think that was like a like maybe 60s or 70s.
Maybe it possibly
because
was.
a lot of people back then dealt with cash.
They did, yeah.
He still made it up.
I just
in the moment.
I didn't like the stuff with Marilyn Monroe. There's certain things they didn't need, and that little alien body I saw briefly. They didn't harp on that. The whole documentary should have talked about that.
That's in his other documentary.
Oh, okay. No wonder. Okay, I thought I saw a flash of it. I'm like,
because you'd think if there's footage of an alien body, that would be look
the
what we've
entire
got.
documentary should be
Yeah,
that.
there's one called Serious Disclosure, and it was all discussed in that one.
Yeah, there was some interesting points raised. It's a little too conspiratorial for me, but I still thought there were some things that the people that he chose to interview, some of them are really hard to discredit. This is where I don't agree with Neil deGrasse Tyson. Sometimes it does matter because there's people you talk to who this is like, hey, I'm going to get some attention for myself. And then there's other people whose field it's a little embarrassing to mention. And when you have an astronaut or a couple of astronauts talking about it, and you have, again, I keep saying airline pilot, it's kind of hard to say those guys are fucking idiots because they're not. They could be mentally ill, but I don't. And he's obviously a doctor, he's a surgeon,
Well,
he's not an idiot.
You mean, I don't know if airline pilots, I would think that maybe military pilots.
Both. I give, but airline pilots because they understand flight, and they understand like what you'll see things like half of those discs people see. I guarantee are military vehicles. Guarantee it. They show Hitler standing in front of stuff like that. They were working on those projects back in the 40s.
And they have
so much of other good stuff he was working on. But in the 40s, they were working on that. So the U.S. was definitely working on that. So I bet you half or more of the alien sightings, quote unquote, those discs, wound up becoming the stealth bomber or prototypes for the stealth bomber. And they're just things that people are like, yeah, because they'd rather have you think it's a spaceman than have you go, oh, fuck, they're working on something that the Soviets don't have.
And there is this idea that a lot of the evidence shows that in the initial news reports and the initial government reports and all this stuff, they were saying these are UFOs, these are flying saucers, these are extraterrestrials. And then later they were explained to be something else with the intention saying like, look, they covered it up later, even though at first they told us the truth.
Sure.
Whereas they could have easily been covering it up at first, and then later said, hey, because now the technology is so familiar to us, it's not scary.
It doesn't matter anymore. Or it could be a combination of that stuff. I don't think either one of them has it right, but I do think that the source... Anyway, I was saying that because a guy who flies for United Airlines understands a lot more about lift and about the impossibility of something going up and then banking right and stopping and going back, and he knows what a stealth bomber can do and what it can't do. So, or not stealth bomber, the Harrier jets, the ones that would stop and then they hover and then they land. Yeah, like that's a military technology.
Do typical airline pilots, do they actually know military
I
technology?
bet you a lot of them do because most of them are ex-military. A lot of them are ex-military.
Those ones would.
And a lot of them understand. They just understand it anyway. Like, you don't have to be in on the military to know that world. You just you're familiar with that world. I'm not saying they know everything, but they could look at something in the sky that you or I would go, "What the fuck is that?" And he'd go, "No, it's a Harrier jet." It's
I don't know.
whatever.
I kind of feel like that's a bus driver being like, "Yeah, I know how tanks work."
No, it's a different world. I know what you're saying, but no, I think military. Most airline pilots are ex-military.
Those guys, of course, if you're ex-military, that's a different scenario altogether. But I can't just, if it's just like a young guy who's like an airline pilot, like I don't think John Travolta has secret, although he might, the Scientologist might have told him.
Well, if he's flying, dude, if you're flying and you see something below you flying, they're also seeing it from a different angle. Like an airline pilot is not just seeing a light in the sky that could be a reflection of something, whatever. A lot of times they're looking and it's on their level or below them, and then it goes above them. They're seeing it at 25, 30,000 feet, which is much different. There's less distractions. There's less possibilities of what it could be.
Yeah,
you have a clearer view of it. There's less city lights blocking. There's all kinds of reasons I think those guys are more credible.
I saw that Denzel movie, and they could be all high on alcohol and coke, too.
You know what? That is true. And he did turn the plane upside down.
Yeah,
as he does with my frown.
So you never know. I want to know if an extraterrestrial gave Stephen Greer his workout regimen, because that dude is Shaq Diesel.
He's very buff. He's a very buff doctor. He got a little.
You see his back when he's walking around?
Yeah, he's a big guy. He cried at one point, but I liked him.
Look at his fucking neck. His neck is thicker than his head.
I don't know if because he's saying that these guys are debriefing him and briefing him. I'm like, who is he that the guy head of the CIA would talk to him?
Probably bullying him. He's like, look at these fucking biceps. Look at these triceps. This guy is big. He's one of these guys who got picked on for being a science geek in high school.
Yeah.
So he did two things when he got older. Number one, researched the fuck out of aliens to prove they're real. Number two, got a fucking pump on in the gym so
Number
nobody
three,
can pick on him
steroids.
anymore.
He's a big dude.
Yeah, he is.
And he probably does them right. Isn't he? He's an emergency room doctor, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He's a trauma surgeon.
Yeah.
Right?
So again, another. But again, just because somebody's bright doesn't mean they can't be wrong or mentally ill or crazy.
The smartest people sometimes, like the geniuses, are the guys who can convince themselves of things.
They
like
can.
Those people who are very. I mean, that's people who are so smart can be smart to one thing, or can be good at convincing themselves and looking at this evidence and this evidence, and they're more likely to say, well, that authority figure is wrong because I'm a genius and I've done my research and I found this to be right and I don't believe that person.
I've used that example for Bobby Fischer a lot. Like he's one of the smartest guys ever, and he couldn't unsee something once he thought it, and then he was able to out-argue anybody and convince himself. And you just get crazy and you go down a rabbit hole. And that's what I don't want to do with this stuff, because when you go down a rabbit hole, you become irrational.
Right.
Like you're not fucking thinking rationally anymore, and you see it everywhere, and then you think that Obama and Clinton are in on it, and I just don't believe that they are. I believe that maybe they don't know certain things, but I don't believe that they all get a walk. And
Well, that's what they sort of said on there is that a lot of the presidents have no idea what's actually going on.
Right.
Because there's this whole government, black government underbelly that
Like the dark web?
Yeah, something like that.
Except the government.
Yep.
I mean, right? And you need Tor.
Now they're saying North Korea might be behind that whole fucking thing.
What? North Korea?
The ransomware. That whole Bitcoin thing.
I read that. Well, it's not a Bitcoin thing. It's ransomware that requires
Bitcoins.
Bitcoin to pay.
Yeah. So the whole Bitcoin scam to get Bitcoins.
Yeah. You can use Bitcoins for all kinds of stuff.
I've never used a Bitcoin. I'm mining for them, but I'm not using my computer. I'm doing it manually.
I don't know.
I'm out in my yard.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, I am.
Just digging for Bitcoins?
Digging for Bitcoins.
I've struck Bitcoin!
I want to be a computer hacker.
You do?
Some would say I'm already a comic hacker. Oh, my head hurts.
Well, I can give you tips. I spent a long time as a hacker.
I saw a movie, too, I want to talk about before I forget.
You're all over the place.
I know. I'm awake today.
Yeah, well,
I'm not sick. Bobby!
I wish you were sick.
All right. I forgot.
I know who you're talking about.
Speaking about, no, because we're talking about space, and I forgot to mention, I finally watched Passengers.